Well, hello, my friends. It's the Christmas season. And for some of you, it is simply the most wonderful time of the year. But for many, well, December can be tough. It can be stressful. It can be challenging. It can be lonely. I'm wondering if you'd allow me an opportunity to try to encourage you today with this thought. Christmas time really is a season of hope, because of God's greatest gift to humanity, Jesus Christ, our Savior. Can I invite you to join me throughout the month of December? May we take a few moments and celebrate the coming of Christ with a special Advent series based in part on my book, Because of Bethlehem. It features a sermon series that I shared with my church. I sure hope you'll enjoy it. And most of all, I hope you'll remember that Jesus Christ really is the reason for the season. May you be blessed as you listen. Maybe you can relate to my niece, Allison, who is not only a third-year law student at the University of Arkansas, she has 4 children. And Christmas is a busy time, and her husband, wonderful Larry, has been traveling. So the family got this text message this week. Just for giggles, the kids and I bought and decorated the Christmas tree tonight without Larry. He's on a work trip. It was a comedy of errors. I totally pulled into the garage, forgetting that the guy at Home Depot had just tied the Christmas tree on top of the Suburban. And then after we put on the lights and over half the ornaments, the tree stand broke, and the whole thing started falling over. It is now tied to the grand piano with a jump rope. Hashtag, we need Larry. Well, we all need something. In this time of year, we find much strength in the Christmas hymns. These hymns that have endured decades, sometimes centuries, and have endured for a reason. Because they embody the Christmas hope, and they transport us back to Bethlehem. Perfect example, one of our favorites. Come, O come, Emmanuel. 700 years before the birth of Jesus, the prophet Isaiah foretold, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign, and the virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son. And she will call him Emmanuel." Emmanuel meaning God with us. Jesus fulfilled that prophecy in the first chapter of the first gospel after relating the birth events of the birth of Christ. Matthew wrote, "All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophets. The virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel," which means God with us, God with us. Not just God created us or God watching over us or God hearing our prayers, but God with us, God where we are, God walking our streets and breathing our air and taking on flesh. God with us. This is the message of this 150-year-old hymn. O come, Emmanuel. And ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice. Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. The melody is distinctive, isn't it? In the way it moves from minor to major key, from prayer offered to prayer answered. The prayer in minor key is wistful. It's bittersweet. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel. But then the answered prayer is triumphant, as if someone heard the first verse and through the second is declaring, rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. In the prayer portion of the song, the world is described as captive, as mourning, lonely, in exile. Maybe these words describe your world this Christmas. You can relate to the phrase, gloomy clouds of night, and you long for death's dark shadow to be put to flight. Maybe your Christmas song is a plaintive cry for help. If so, then this is your song. You can sing it with faith, knowing that Emmanuel will hear you. He heard George Chandler. On December 24th, 1997, George Chandler sang, O come, Emmanuel, at the Christmas Eve candlelight service of the First Christian Church in Columbus, Indiana. His wife, Jeannie, had asked the minister if her husband could sing the song. The minister, Mark Jones, admits that he was initially reluctant. George was quite old, and his voice wasn't what it used to be. And since Christmas Eve services are attended by many guests, he wanted the church to leave a good impression with the audience. But George was such a nice man, such a tender spirit. So Pastor Jones chose to include his solo. George was by far the oldest member of the choir. His hair was silvered and his back was stooped. And even though his voice cracked a time or two, he sang from the heart. And his face beamed as he declared the chorus, Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Later that night, as he and Jeannie were driving home, he told her how much it meant to him to have had the privilege to sing to the church, Emmanuel, God with us. Those would be some of the last words that he would speak. As the couple made their way up the driveway together and opened the back door to the kitchen, he had a massive heart attack. And he died. As Jeannie knelt over the body of her husband of 5 decades, she remembered what he had just said. And it occurred to her, and she found such comfort in this thought. He had just sung of God being with us, and now he was with God. Isn't that the promise of Bethlehem?